He's a bad coach. What do you think? Overreaction, yes or no?
My immediate answer is that's an overreaction, that he's not a bad coach. But something that I read on Twitter, and I'll just quote it straight up because I thought it was super interesting and it was some things that I hadn't thought of before. So a tweet from Spartan Wire, they said, Mel Tucker is great for recruiting, modernizing the MSU football brand, and is good overall Sunday through Friday. And then they followed that up with saying he has proven to be disappointing on Saturdays. I mean, if we're looking at that face value, that matches up kind of with what we're seeing this season. Maybe not so much last season when we had Kenneth Walker and things were going better. But I don't think he's a bad head coach. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think that we sort of saw two sides of the same coin between last season and this season. So in the first season, you saw a coach who was very competent at times and even more competent than Jim Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. Like, he outcoached Jim Harbaugh. That is what won that game. Right? Yeah. Like, Michigan State did not beat Michigan because they were better. They beat Michigan because Mel Tucker was the better coach. Right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this season, you don't have Kenneth Walker. You don't have that sort of utilization. So I think that when you get a team that's better, I think that Mel Tucker can do better with better players.
Yep, I agree.
So, I guess that kind of goes into, would he be a good coach in the NFL? And this is sort of an aside, right? We don't know. We can't know right now. In the NFL, it's different because you don't get to build your roster. And I've always said this is before Jim Harbaugh rightfully proved me wrong by beating Ohio State this past weekend. Mm-hmm. But I've always thought that Jim Harbaugh was a much worse college coach than he is an NFL coach, because he struggled with recruiting and he struggled with finding a quarterback and getting the best out of these college guys, whereas in the NFL, you don't get to pick your roster. Your roster is picked for you. You just have to do your best with what's there. And again, if Mel Tucker is given a roster and that roster is insufficient, I don't know that he would be good in that scenario. Whereas if you give him the chance to recruit and get better players, yeah. So that's, I guess, the side that I'm with. And I'll get into sort of where I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, and then I'm going to go into where I'm seeing problems. Mm-hmm. Because I definitely think that this season took a lot of that faith away.
Yeah, of course.
Because 12 months ago, I was ecstatic.
Yeah.
I thought this team was incredible. Mm-hmm. And now you're seeing a team where they should have won at least 2 more games.
Right.
And I think that coaching and execution alone were the reasons for those. And yeah, Michigan State in the last 4 weeks of the season, they didn't even have pads on or were hitting because they couldn't risk anything. So I guess I just can't. It's much more complicated than what you see on the field, but at the same time, let's get into Indiana, for example. Mm-hmm. Indiana was a program loss, and I don't think that I will recover from that game until several months from now, because it wasn't even about the performance at the end. It wasn't about the kick. It wasn't about anything near the end of the game. Mm-hmm. I think that there is no reason why MSU should not have won that game, and coaching exclusively lost that game. So that's where I'm at. You can't have games like that at the end of the game. Against Penn State, where Penn State scored that touchdown easy peasy, and they didn't score. They didn't call a timeout because they didn't have the right coverage on the field. I think that those are just things that are very questionable to me. So, while again in 2021 I saw a team that was very competent and could play very good football, now I'm seeing a team that looks very incompetent and isn't playing complementary football, and that you are what your record says you are at the end of the day. right?
Right.
Like, I mean,
right.
we could argue that a healthier Michigan State team would have won more games. At the end of the day, didn't happen.
Doesn't matter because it didn't happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. And kind of to follow up on that, too, I know people are talking about, Mel Tucker's contract, stuff like that. I don't care if the guy's making a dime. I don't care if he's getting paid for free. I don't care if he's making half of his salary.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, I mean, sometimes like that, again, that game against Indiana just infuriates me. So you want to play well, I'll say nice things about you, but you give me a season like that, you just cannot have losses like Indiana and everything. So I don't know. That's my spiel. Where are you at, Sydney?
I just say, like, I need to give him a little more time because there's going to be some growing pains, but there are also some things that have been inexcusable mistakes. Some of their time management at the end of games I've been unimpressed with, and like some things that don't really match up with growing pains to me. There are obviously, like I said, there's some things that I have to wait and see as he brings in his own players and works through that recruiting process. Some of those things will come, but some of those things, as far as like the coaching end, I expect those to be better than they are. I was at the Indiana game in the press box and in the press conference afterwards, like, he is a very reflective coach, and he does go in depth about a lot of very specific things in the press conference. So it's not like he's not noticing. Obviously, he's noticing those things. But I would like to see a little bit more, I don't know how to say this other than like less talk about it and more change that's coming from it, because I feel like he was saying a lot of the same things in his press conferences, like, that he's noticing that it's like just little things here and there that are piling up on them. Well, why isn't that being addressed from a coaching standpoint? What's missing there that's causing those little things? I know that it's some of the players aren't exactly who he wants out in those positions, but also, like, how can you as a coach use those guys and fix some of those mistakes? I don't know.
Yeah,
I just think
you're absolutely right. Because the performance at the end of the day is what matters, right? And I think, like, here's how it is for me. Because I know that I said a bunch of bad things about Mel Tucker just now, but let's play devil advocate for a second, right? So at the same time, can you think back to Michigan? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Michigan just lost. I think the score was 29-7. Fact check me, please. But anyway, score was like 29-7. And Michigan State lost that game. That was not a good game. I mentioned before that I'd like to see it more competitive. I did not think that Michigan State was going to win. They were depleted. There was nothing going for them, and it was just a really bad place to be, and Michigan's a really good team.
Right.
At the same time, then you had the tunnel gate, okay? Players go crazy. Allegations, whatever. Like, we can get into that another day. Follow up the next week by going into ranked Illinois and defeating them. That is a good win. That is a program win. Those are games I'd like to see.
Right. Of course.
Because the players played hard. And I know that I don't like to say that because I don't think that that's a very good opinion of a team. Right? Like the Lions, for example, everyone's always like, they're playing hard. And I'm like, yeah, they're professional football players. I hope so.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I understand that, but with Michigan State the week before, their entire whole deal was very depressed. Like it was, they had been exhausted by all of these bad, rumors like of Mel Tucker, having whether they were racist or whatever, with these, I don't know. People were saying a lot of bad things about the program, and the program was actually in a bad place. They go into Champaign, Illinois, and they completely turn it around. They played very good football that week, and then in the weeks after. And you obviously have Indiana. Sorry, you have Indiana, and that was a setback. And then the loss to Penn State, and that was a bad loss. So Yeah, I think that, playing hard matters. I think that definitely matters because any program could have collapsed in that situation. Anyone could have just said, "Oop," and folded, right?
Yeah, right.
So, like Texas A&M not playing good this year. Baylor didn't have a good season this year. Miami completely lost trust in the whole thing that they're doing. So I think that there are other programs who have it a lot worse than Michigan State does, and I still think that Michigan State's quote-unquote trajectory is still in the right place. I just think that it's much more uncertain than it was 12 months ago. I think that I have lost the faith that I had 12 months ago.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I would agree. I think, and I feel like that sums it up. I mean, I think that's perfect. An expected opinion on how after that season. I don't think anyone's feeling chipper about Mel Tucker after that performance, and I feel like what he does next will define how what he does next will define if that's an overreaction or not.